This is directed at the Young Democrats. Proponents of the minimum wage claim it is necessary to prevent the standard of living for the most vulnerable members of society from declining, while opponents claim that it reduces the quality of labor and ultimately improves the labor market. Should the U.S. continue to set a minimum wage?
I can guarantee that both these people to my right are going to say that minimum wage creates unemployment, which is, they have a diagram and everything, it's kind of interesting. But the truth is that even in this the economy is really hurting right now. And when you go and you look for jobs, jobs are still hiring above minimum wage. So if the issue was that businesses would be like, well, we can't afford to pay this minimum wage, so we'll just go without the labor, and then those people aren't getting a job at all, then all of these businesses right now would be hiring at just minimum wage to get by. But if all these businesses are still hiring at a wage above minimum wage, more than they have to, then that's clearly not the big issue here. And also, setting minimum wage absolutely does standardize like the quality of living to make sure that there's a poverty line for that people can't slip below. It prevents people from being exploited. And also, if you increase the salary and give people more spending power, that enables them to contribute more to the economy and put more money back into it.
Thank you. College Republicans.
All right, like Juliet just said, actually we do believe that minimum wage affects jobs. I have grown up with parents that have run small businesses, and I have seen how this minimum wage getting increased actually leads to people being laid off or fired because we can't afford it. As she also said, people right now are hiring at above minimum wage because that is what is required to get an employee to work half the time. So the employees are going to set their own wages anyway, so the government doesn't need to do it. If somebody cannot afford to live off of a certain amount of money, they're going to automatically need more money, so it's going to regulate itself. You don't need the government to step in and say, hey look, this is how much you need to pay people, because it does it on its own.
Also, I think minimum wage, especially in tough economic times, it definitely leads to outsourcing. If I can get someone in India to work for $3 less an hour than someone in Indiana, then I think I'm going to pay someone in India to work for me because that's much more cost effective. So I don't see how it really protects the American worker at all. It really defeats the American worker.
Thank you. Students for Liberty?
Juliet was correct. I did draw a diagram, and I wish you would have recognized what it actually stands for, because if more people understood this diagram, they would be able to answer over half the problems of the world. This is your basic supply and demand curve. And when you increase the demand by increasing wage rates, if you make it $10 an hour or $15 an hour, more people are willing to work at that price. Like maybe I'm not willing to work at $3, but I'm willing to work at 20 up here. But what you do is, in essence, have less people willing to provide jobs at that rate. So what you get is unemployment, and this is a cat.
Clearly, you can see the absurdity of minimum wage law. If it were so good, why don't we make it $50 an hour, $100 an hour, $1,000 an hour? I mean, it's ridiculous to think that just by passing legislation to increase minimum wage, that somehow enriches the human condition. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Democrats, would you like to respond?
Yes. I just want to toss an acknowledgement at the issue of willingness or unwillingness to work. I can't imagine that there are a lot of people out there who are perfectly able and capable and not willing to work. So I think that kind of throws off the supply and demand curve of labor, because I'm sure there are many, like most people, willing to go seek a job at minimum wage just to have that job, especially right now. And the cat.
That's the point. If your labor's worth $5 an hour, it's $10.
You'll have a chance to respond. Are you finished with Democrats?
Yeah.
The Senate now goes to the College Republicans.
We'll take their minutes.
Just hand it over.
Yeah.
Okay, Students for Liberty?
If your labor's worth $5 an hour, if you are worth $5 an hour and the law is $10 an hour, you are completely impoverished. You are out of the workforce. You are unemployed. As simple as that.
Think about it like this. If some people aren't willing, this is a chair example, Some people aren't able to jump over the height of this chair. This is minimum wage. And if your labor, if your jumping ability isn't as high as the minimum, you cannot get over the chair.
That's why you try to merge the.
That's why you set the minimum wage, so everyone gets over the chair.
Well, now let's keep moving on to the
But then I have to say that even if you're really not worth it, I have to pretend you are, because the government
college
says you are.
Republicans. We're now going to be moving on to the next topic. I would encourage each of the organizations to stick to more constructive comments as opposed to attacking comments.